I still remember the moment the news broke. It wasn't some obscure basketball blog or a small social media whisper. No, this one hit like a thunderclap across every screen, every feed, every sports network. Taylor Swift, the pop phenomenon whose influence stretches beyond music into almost every corner of culture, had publicly shown support for Caitlin Clark. And the WNBA, a league already navigating its delicate balance between competitive integrity and media portrayal, seemed utterly unprepared. Cathy Engelbert, the commissioner, was suddenly at the epicenter of a storm she hadn't anticipated. Behind the polished speeches, strategic press releases, and meticulously managed public appearances, there was panic. A panic that would ripple across every department, every PR team, every social media manager. The league's narrative, carefully curated over months, if not years, was crumbling. And it wasn't due to a rival league ratings dip or an internal scandal. No, it was because one pop star had tweeted her admiration. To understand the gravity of it, you need to understand what Caitlin Clark represented. A prodigy, a scoring machine, a college phenom with talent that bordered on mythical. Fans loved her. Scouts drooled over her stats. Brands circled her like sharks sensing opportunity. But within the WNBA, her rise was more than just athletic prowess. It was a symbol of the next generation, a living bridge between grassroots basketball and the league's storied history. The league had stories it wanted to tell, images it wanted to project, narratives it wanted to control, and suddenly Taylor Swift had hijacked that control. It started innocuously. Taylor posted a short video on Instagram, clapping from the stands during a college game. She mentioned Caitlin in the caption, praising her skill, her dedication, her charisma. It was simple. It was natural. It was normal. But within hours, the clip was trending. Clips of Caitlin scoring three-pointers with insane accuracy, overlays of Taylor's reactions, fan edits, and commentary exploded across TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Memes formed. GIFs multiplied. The college game became more than a match. It became a spectacle that outshined the WNBA itself, at least momentarily. Inside league headquarters, chaos ensued. Emails flew. Messages buzzed. PR strategists, marketing teams, and executives were scrambling. Cathy Engelbert held emergency calls with her team. "We need to control the narrative," she reportedly said, her voice calm but tense, the kind of tension that comes when you know the storm is bigger than any of your plans. They debated hashtags, media appearances, counter-narratives. Should they amplify Caitlin's profile within the league? Should they subtly redirect attention to other players? Or was it too late? Had the narrative already shifted in the public's mind? The real problem wasn't Taylor herself. It wasn't even Caitlin Clark. The problem was perception. The WNBA had been trying to position itself as the premier professional women's league, promoting parity, teamwork, and league-wide recognition. But now the spotlight was singular. One player catapulted into cultural prominence, backed by a global pop icon. Fans started comparing every move, every shot, every game against Caitlin's brilliance. Other star players, even seasoned veterans, felt the gaze shift. Social media conversations became a mix of admiration, envy, and sometimes criticism. And somewhere in the middle, the league's carefully controlled messaging, its curated social media, planned campaigns, sponsorships, felt suddenly irrelevant. I spoke to a source close to the league, someone who wished to remain anonymous. "It's like watching a controlled fire suddenly turn into a wildfire," they said. "Everything we planned, every press strategy, every storyline is being rewritten by the fans and Taylor Swift, and we have no say in it." They paused. The fans aren't just watching games anymore. They're watching narratives, alliances, personalities, and Caitlin, because of Taylor, became the axis of that universe overnight. The reaction wasn't limited to social media. Sports networks scrambled to cover the story. "Taylor Swift supports Caitlin Clark, WNBA narrative in turmoil," read one headline. "Pop icon shakes college hoops world, WNBA scrambles," read another. Panel discussions erupted, analysts debating the implications, former players weighing in, commentators asking the unthinkable. Does celebrity endorsement in women's sports shift the balance of influence faster than league structures can adapt? Even the tone of reporting changed. Where once Caitlin's achievements were framed within her college team, now they were framed in cultural spectacle. And the WNBA? It was playing catch-up. Meanwhile, the fans were loving it. Clips went viral. Hashtags like Nodder Taylor Loves Caitlin and Caitlin Clark Rising trended globally. College basketball feeds exploded with content, analyses, fan edits, and breakdowns of every play Caitlin made, often with Taylor's reactions interwoven. The engagement was enormous, unprecedented, and in a sense the WNBA benefited indirectly. Interest in women's basketball soared, ticket inquiries increased, merch sold out faster. But the league executives, while secretly pleased, felt exposed. Their narrative was no longer theirs. It belonged to the fans, to pop culture, to Taylor Swift. Cathy Engelbert from the outside maintained composure. Publicly, statements were measured. "We celebrate Caitlin Clark's achievements and are thrilled by the growing interest in women's basketball," read one press release. Subtle, calm, diplomatic. But behind closed doors, it was anything but calm. Every decision, every interview, every social media post was dissected. "We can't overreact," one executive warned. "But we can't ignore it either." It was a high-wire act, balancing league image with public enthusiasm. The reality was clear. The WNBA had become secondary in the narrative race. Fans weren't just watching basketball anymore. They were watching culture, celebrity, and human stories. Caitlin's rise, magnified by Taylor Swift's endorsement, had created a phenomenon that couldn't be managed with spreadsheets and PR templates. And for Engelbert, it was a test unlike any she had faced, a test of adaptability, foresight, and the ability to embrace chaos without losing control. The irony, of course, was delicious. Here was a league built on decades of strategic development, media partnerships, and careful promotion, now contending with a single, unplanned tweet. One pop icon, one college athlete, one moment of genuine admiration. That was all it took to shake the WNBA's narrative foundations. And yet, in that chaos, there was also opportunity. Opportunities to rethink marketing, to engage with a new generation of fans, to embrace the storytelling power of culture over control. And Caitlin? She remained almost blissfully unaware of the larger machinations. She played, she scored, she smiled for cameras. Her focus was on basketball, her craft, her next shot. But everywhere she went, the narrative followed. Clips, headlines, fan reactions, viral moments. The story wasn't just about points or wins, it was about influence, visibility, and cultural relevance. And suddenly, women's basketball was no longer just a sport. It was a cultural event, a story that even the league itself was learning to follow rather than lead. As the week progressed, the storm didn't die down. If anything, it intensified. Clips of Caitlin celebrating a buzzer beater were shared millions of times. Taylor Swift's own fans, some unfamiliar with basketball, became instant followers of Caitlin's journey. Every step Caitlin took on the court was now a potential viral moment. Every interview, every press interaction, every social media post was analyzed, dissected, and discussed. The league, once the storyteller, had become the backdrop, and that, in essence, is the story of the week that Cathy Engelbert panicked. It wasn't about control. It wasn't about statistics. It wasn't even about games. It was about narrative, about perception, about who tells the story and who gets to frame it. Taylor Swift had, intentionally or not, shifted the axis. And the WNBA, with all its planning and careful curation, was suddenly playing a reactive game, a game where the ball wasn't in their hands but in the hands of culture itself. By the time the weekend rolled around, it was clear that nothing would be the same. Social media hadn't just carried the story. It had amplified it, turned it into a cultural phenomenon. Fans were creating memes, sharing TikTok edits, and posting reaction videos. Even people who had never watched a women's basketball game were suddenly invested. They didn't just want to see Caitlin Clark play. They wanted to witness history, or at least what felt like history. And behind the scenes, Cathy Engelbert and her team were scrambling to find footing in a world that had moved faster than any of their spreadsheets or strategy sessions. The pressure wasn't just internal. Sponsors and partners began asking questions. Are we leveraging this moment? They wanted to know. How can we align our campaigns with this visibility? Every department had to pivot on a dime. Marketing teams huddled to design merchandise, promotional content, and campaigns that could ride the wave rather than fight it. Legal teams examined agreements and endorsements, ensuring that nothing violated NCAA rules or league guidelines. Even the coaching staff felt it. When Caitlin walked into practice, she wasn't just a player, they reminded each other. She was a cultural touchstone. Fans, meanwhile, had made it clear where their loyalty lay. Twitter threads exploded with praise for Caitlin, discussions about her skills, and speculation about her future in the league. TikTok edits paired her shots with Taylor Swift songs, creating a hybrid fandom that merged pop culture and sports in a way that had rarely been seen before. The WNBA had always cultivated fandom, sure, but never like this. Never with this raw, viral intensity. And with each viral clip, each new edit, each shared moment, the league's narrative tension increased. Cathy Engelbert had no choice but to respond strategically. She couldn't control the cultural momentum, but she could guide it. Public statements were crafted with care, measured, professional, yet acknowledging the excitement. Caitlin Clark embodies the excellence of women's basketball, and we're thrilled to see her passion resonate so widely, she said in one press release. Behind the scenes, though, the league's teams were running scenario planning sessions. What if Caitlin went viral again? What if more celebrities showed support? What if this story eclipsed the WNBA entirely in the public imagination? Every hypothetical demanded a response. Every potential angle required preparation. Meanwhile, the narrative had begun to shape itself organically in ways the league hadn't foreseen. Caitlin's incredible skills, her three-point accuracy, her court awareness, her leadership on the floor were no longer just stats in a report. They were cinematic moments, shared, remixed, and celebrated. Taylor Swift's endorsement had acted like a magnifying glass, revealing Caitlin's talent to millions who might never have watched a women's college game. And suddenly, every shot Caitlin took became symbolic. Every play wasn't just basketball, it was a story. For the players themselves, this had real consequences. Teammates and competitors alike had to adjust to new dynamics. Other players, previously content with relative anonymity or steady recognition, found themselves compared to Caitlin's meteoric rise. Coaches noticed changes in behavior, both on and off the court. Media availability increased, interviews multiplied, and the simple act of practicing suddenly carried extra weight. Every pass, every strategy discussion, every public statement could be scrutinized. The environment had changed, and with it, the psychological landscape of the league. Interestingly, there were unexpected benefits. Viewership numbers for WNBA games spiked. Ticket inquiries surged. Social media engagement hit record highs. For a league that had long sought mainstream visibility, this cultural moment offered an unprecedented opportunity. Yet the irony remained. The league benefited, but it had lost a measure of narrative control. Fans weren't just watching games, they were watching the story, the spectacle, the intersection of talent and celebrity. And the league, which had spent years curating its own storylines, was now reacting to the cultural forces it had never fully anticipated. In boardrooms, conversations turned philosophical. What did this moment mean for women's sports? For the WNBA? For the intersection of culture and athletics? One executive remarked, "We're no longer just promoting a sport. We're part of a cultural conversation that extends far beyond the court." Another warned, "That's exactly the problem. When culture drives the narrative, the league becomes secondary." Cathy Engelbert had to balance these perspectives, ensuring that the WNBA maintained its integrity while embracing the unprecedented attention. The story also prompted broader reflections on celebrity influence. Taylor Swift wasn't a sports analyst. She wasn't a league insider. She was a cultural force, an influencer whose endorsement could shift perception overnight. Her involvement highlighted the growing power of social media, celebrity visibility, and viral culture in shaping the narratives of professional leagues. It wasn't just Caitlin Clark who benefited. The entire ecosystem, the fans, the media, even aspiring players found themselves caught up in a whirlwind that blurred the lines between sport, entertainment, and celebrity. In practical terms, Engelbert and her team began to innovate. They coordinated with college programs, media outlets, and sponsors to craft campaigns that complemented the viral moment rather than resisted it. Storytelling on league channels emphasized the growth of women's basketball, the skill and dedication of players, and the league's commitment to fostering talent. Social media posts highlighted moments of teamwork, dramatic finishes, and behind-the-scenes training sessions, giving fans content that both celebrated Caitlin and contextualized the broader league story. Yet, the cultural phenomenon wasn't easily tamed. Fans remained unpredictable. Celebrity involvement continued to dominate coverage, and every game became a potential viral moment. Engelbert had to navigate a delicate balance, embracing the excitement while preserving the league's credibility. She realized that the WNBA couldn't control everything, nor should it try. Instead, the strategy shifted to influence rather than dictate, to guide rather than command. By midweek, the league's communications team had adapted. They released mini-documentaries highlighting Caitlin's journey, coupled with player profiles that emphasized the depth of talent in the WNBA. Marketing campaigns included interactive fan events, polls, and engagement campaigns that encouraged fans to celebrate all players, while naturally riding the viral wave Caitlin's popularity had created. Slowly, the league began to feel more like a participant in the cultural moment rather than a passive observer. The narrative tension, however, remained palpable. Every new post, every viral video, every celebrity shout-out carried the potential to disrupt or enhance the league's story. Engelbert and her leadership team had to think not just about basketball, but about public perception, media cycles, and cultural resonance. It was a balancing act that required agility, foresight, and a deep understanding of both the sport and the culture surrounding it. In the end, the incident became more than a story about one pop star or one athlete. It became a case study in modern sports management, cultural engagement, and media dynamics. The WNBA learned that control was no longer about dictating narratives. It was about participating in them, shaping them subtly, and embracing the unpredictability of a world where culture and sport intersected in real time. And Caitlin? She continued to excel, unaware or perhaps unconcerned with the larger story swirling around her. Her focus remained on the game, on her craft, and on the next challenge. Yet the moment had already transformed her into a symbol, a bridge between traditional sport and modern culture, a player whose talent could not be separated from the viral context it now inhabited. The league had learned, perhaps reluctantly, that heroes could emerge organically and that influence could come from unexpected places. As the week drew to a close, Cathy Engelbert breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Not because the storm had passed, it hadn't. Not because she had regained control, it wasn't about control anymore. But because she had survived it, learned from it, and seen the potential in the chaos. The WNBA had changed, perhaps permanently, but the league was stronger, more visible, and more culturally relevant than ever before. And in that reality, Caitlin Clark, Taylor Swift, and the fans had all played a part. The lesson was clear. The narrative was no longer in the hands of the league alone. It belonged to the people, to culture, and to those bold enough to shape it. And Cathy Engelbert, in the eye of the storm, had discovered that sometimes survival meant adaptation, and influence meant embracing the unpredictable rather than resisting it.